All right. Well, good evening. My name is Randy Meyer. It's very nice to have met y'all. Thank y'all for being here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming voter-approved tax rate election. I want to clarify, as the interim superintendent, I'm not able to advocate for or against. I can just give information, but we certainly want to make sure you all have your questions answered. And if you wanted to share this information out with others, we want you to feel comfortable in doing that. So really, this process started a year ago. Every time we approve a budget, we know that we have challenges in taking care of our facilities and paying for safety and security, and also trying to address the pay, not just of teachers, but all of our staff, but particularly teacher pay, because we typically have 130 to 140 positions to fill every single year as teachers leave us for retirement, leaving to go elsewhere, relocating, some leaving the profession. And Victoria does not generate and grow up enough new teachers to fill all of those vacancies, or teacher aides, or principals, or even district administrators. And so the board subcommittee, made up of 3 trustees, Trustee Rick Jones, Trustee Lingle, Mandy Lingle, and Trustee Kathy Bell, set out on a journey of listening. Let's go out into the community and let's ask the community, how do you want us to do this? Because in the past, we've had several failed maintenance bonds, so that means we have to pay for facility repairs out of the same bucket to try to pay people. And what all would you like us to do? And so through several community input sessions, just like this one, and a survey for all citizens and staff, the message was, we'll keep trying to do both, but let's try to address pay first. And so the board subcommittee came up with a targeted pay increase and went through all the questions. Should it go to teachers? Should it go to everybody? They processed all of that, all of those recommendations, and the final decision was it needs to go to everybody, but instead of a massive same amount to everybody, let's target our most experienced teachers with over 50% of this target. And so $2 an hour for all of our hourly people. We have teacher aides that are vital to being able to run our schools, but we start at $11 an hour, and that's just not a competitive increase. And we have teacher aide vacancies. We wanted to get our starting teacher pay up to $50,000. It had been $48,500 at that time. Just a couple of years ago, it was $46,000. But when we go out and try to recruit brand new young people coming into the profession from the colleges, and you have your Victoria ISD table starting at 48 or 49, but the neighbor next door is 60,000. It's hard to convince people from San Antonio, Austin, Houston to move into Victoria for that. But our biggest amount is going to be for teachers with 5 years of experience or more, will be $7,000. So if you have 1 to 2 years of experience, you'll see a $2,500 increase to your pay. If you have 3 to 4 years, $3,500, and then $7,000 for 5 years of experience or more. 5 years is really that magical number. If you're a brand new teacher, and we are so glad to have all of our new teachers, but once you hit year 4 or 5 or 6, you have found a rhythm to teaching. You are better equipped when you have kids that don't always want to sit in school all day and learn. You can help with that. You can help with when you present your lessons to capture more kids that first time and spending less and less on reteaching and intervention. And experienced teachers help parents. Sometimes it's the parents who also need help in how to support their child outside of school. And so the experienced teacher just makes a difference. And so we targeted that, and then a 3% of midpoint for all of our other pay plan folks. And then there are others that aren't even on here. We wanted to address principals and assistant principals and our retired teachers who come in and are 3-hour teachers and so forth. But the bulk of it is lined up here. So that was the target, and the target will cost $11 million. So in May, the school board voted and adopted a pay plan, part 1, and that's the next column. We call it Compensation Plan Version 1, and we squeezed every penny out of the budget to put into this so we could get as much pay into the pockets of our people. So when you saw in the newspaper the school district cut the budget, and that was for that. Yes, we cut the maintenance budget, but we do have some fund balance that we're using to offset that. So the maintenance department is able to still do the things, but they can't fix expensive things. They're going to just continue the routine maintenance. We'll have to have a community conversation about that on some long-range planning for our aging facilities. So that is approved. It's a done deal. And then in August, the school board, in order to fund the remaining $7 million, which is Compensation Plan Version 2, needed to set a tax rate that is 9 cents higher than what the law allows. And if by doing that, it triggers a voter approval. So not only does the school board have to recommend it, but it takes the voters of the Victoria Independent School District to approve that tax rate. And that tax rate will generate about $7 million, which will fund version 2. If the voters say no, then version 2 is not funded and it cannot be honored. So it is a contingent upon that. So if you'll take a look at the next page and look at the bottom red, you can see what our tax rate has been over the last few years. The state has something called compression that the legislature has put in place. And not everybody really understands compression, but if you are a homeowner or a property owner, you've seen the tax rate going down kind of significantly. The values were going up across Victoria and across the state. And so it was a way to push down the tax rate so that what you finally end up paying if your values are going up would stabilize. And in fact, this past year, the compression was so significant with the homestead exemption that for the first time in years, some people may have actually seen finally a decrease in what they pay. And so just 5-6 years ago, the tax rate was just under $1.20. And last year, it dropped down to just under 81 cents. So the tax rate has dropped by 39 cents over the last 5 or 6 years. And the district is asking for 9 cents back so that that can go to funding a pay increase for our teachers and staff. This current year that we're just wrapping up at just under 81 cents, it's the lowest tax rate in well over 30 years, maybe even 40 years. I could only find enough data back about 34 years. I don't even have records for what the tax rate was in the 70s and so forth. And if the voters approve just under 90 cents, that will be the second lowest tax rate in decades. But it's still about 30 cents lower than what it was a few years ago. What does 9 cents cost? What does it cost a homeowner? So if you look at the blue section, you'll see that this year the average appraised value of a home in Victoria is $235,000. Who would have ever thought that was the average? You know, there was a time when we could try to recruit people to Victoria and said, hey, you can get a bigger house for your money here. Milk and eggs cost less. But the reality is, because of inflation and just the values of home, it's not possible for a teacher to come and buy a home here in Victoria with what we pay. And with the homestead exemption now, for the average homeowner, 9 cents is about $10.13 a month, or $121.50 a year. What does it cost for a $500,000 house? Well, that would be $30 a month, or $360 a year. And we have a QR code here in the center. The QR code will take you to the website. It takes you to the other public meetings like this that we have. But we also have some videos that just explain very easily what we're doing with the money. What is a VATRE? It's called several things. Voter approved tax rate election, VATRE, some people call it a VATRE, some people call it a VATRE. It's all the same thing. So I was at a meeting recently and someone said, okay, I understand the voter approved tax rate election, but what's this VATRE thing I hear about? Well, it's the same thing. So we have that. We also have a video on the ballot It's going to be the last ballot item, and the ballot is kind of lengthy, and it's going to make it very clear this is a tax increase. The ballot language does not allow us to say, but it's still lower than what you were paying several years ago. And the ballot language does not legally allow us to say what we're using it for. This is for teacher and staff pay increases. And I've said this is going to generate about $7 million, which is true. However, the way the ballot language requires is what was all of your revenue last year compared to all of your projected revenue, which is about a $9 million increase. So it's going to say $9 million. Well, we're not generating $9 million. We're generating 7, but we can't put that on the ballot. So I think people will see 9 million as, well, that's not what he told us. It was 7. Where are you hiding the other 2 million? We're not. We bring in more because of our debt and more for this or that. It all is washes just exactly though the way the law requires us to put it. So we have a video of that where we break all of that down. Early voting starts on the 21st of October, goes through November 1st, and Election Day is November 5th. And this is on the same ballot as the presidential election and all the others on November 5th. And I will welcome any questions that you might have about this, or the process, or what we're doing with this.
Does it have to pass by a majority or by one vote?
One vote.
But the interesting thing about this election is that it's a presidential election before all the other bonds that have happened in the previous 7 years. That's been decided by about 8,000 people. Yeah. We were fortunate in 2021 that we were able to give a small VATRE, VAT.
Call it whatever you want.
Back, and it was fortunate. It gave about a 4% increase all across the board, but it didn't do a lot to address the important things that, and I'm part of the 54% that voted against everything, except for the VATRE in 21. But as part of the 54% that voted against everything, we kept asking the trustees, we want to trust you that way you're working with your numbers. We want you to fix your buildings that we gave you over all these years. We want you to go ahead and be honest with how much you're taxing us. Don't overtax us when you don't need to be. And the other part is that we need our teachers paid. The most important thing is pay our teachers more. And if it came over among my 54% of the vote over and over, trust and pay the teachers. I've been a big pain in the school board, probably, to say the least. But I ask the questions, hoping that they will go the direction. This year, I gained the most trust of the school board I have in most of my life. They've asked the questions. They've asked Randy what needs to be done, but they deliberated very well to say that it looks like we need to pay our teachers more. Then let's worry about what it takes to get there. And what we watched through the meetings with the school board meetings, and what us 54% watched was a part that, hey guys, Dale believes in this trustees. We believe that we're on the right path. We know as coming from a son of two teacher parents back in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, that the best way to teach is to have the best teachers. That money can buy what you can grow in the town. Well, our town is growing, but we need it to grow faster. We need businesses to know that Victoria is serious about educating our children, but to be the best school district in Victoria. Back when I was a kid, Victoria was the best district in Texas, and that's our goal now, Randy. Mm-hmm. The goal, what we know is that with a 5-year teacher, and we know Randy and Mr. Shepherd before there had it right. They recruited 2 years ago a class of 130 teachers, where most of them were 5-year teachers, and they almost all stayed. This last 2 years ago, we had lost almost 26% of our teachers. Now we're down, this last year, we were down to only like 14 or 15% of our teachers left. And the ones that came back were 5-year teachers. Great teachers. We are on the cutting edge of being, I think, and I think most of the taxpayers of the 54% that vote against, we're turning our school district around. But the important thing is we first have to keep our good teachers. I'm voting for the VATRE, the VATRE, whatever we want to call it. I'm voting for Victoria. And I'm hoping that everyone else, and I hope y'all will too, get the word out that VISD is on the way back. We have a great superintendent that'll be coming in. We don't know who it is yet, but we know that the trustees have worked very hard in interviewing them, screening him. He's going to be a perfect mix. We're going to have a great deputy superintendent that's going to stay with us to make sure that we all stay on the way. And I really hope that we're going to get 17,501 votes on November the 5th. We're going to have 35,000 that's come out to vote. We need 17,501.
Are you guys doing some billboards at all? I know it's
We do.
a lot of information.
We have 11,000 that are up now.
Okay.
We're running digital billboards all throughout Victoria, mostly on this side, but also down US 59 Business and through the center part that used to be known as Town Plaza Mall and the Town and Country.
Okay.
But we have a large number. You'll see 11,000 of them between. Gary Moses is on one of them. We've got Vic Morgan is on another. We've got a lot of folks that are supporting this, and it's going to be saying this is a race for our teachers.
And that can only be done by a private
Right.
political action
Okay.
committee. All the district legally can do is we can provide information. We can't campaign for it. We can't print up the signs for the yards. All of that's up to citizens to do.
And our PAC is called Invest in Ed Victoria.
The nonprofit
Yes.
promoter.
The promoter is Invest, INVEST. The big letter N, then
we
the,
stopped you,
okay.
Hang on, yeah, it won't right on this. Invest.
Invest, the big letter N, and then Ed, big letter E, little d, Victoria.
Oh, do I need to capitalize some of that?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. You'll capitalize the N,
N.
and then the big letter N and the big letter E. And Victoria
So
is another
capitalize
word.
the I and
And
then the
little
N.
d, in Ed, Victoria.
Got it, I think.
And a couple other things I'll point out. You know, I'm a homeowner and I live in the city. So when I look at a 9-cent increase over what I was paying last year, we saw at the state of the city has reduced the tax rate by just under 2 cents. So now it only really feels like 7. And what most people won't understand, because on the money side of the district, our INS, our debt tax rate, which is a part of this, was going to be 3 cents higher. But we're using some fund balance on the debt side to keep that down. So we didn't have to ask for that. So for me, I'm going to feel like, well, it's really only 4 cents. But not everybody's going to understand that. I know that. But the other thing to remember is we have almost 13,000 students throughout Victoria. And many of us will not have our own children here, or these aren't kids we know. But every one of those kids needs a quality educational experience. They need great schools. They need great teachers, because most of them will stay in Victoria. They're not going to leave for other jobs elsewhere. And we want them to be as highly skilled as possible. We want them to grow into good citizens. We want them to be able to contribute. And as companies are looking on what communities to invest, we don't want them to skip Victoria and move into the other towns and communities that are getting academics up. We want our children to have the best academics. And it lifts the entire town up. Because when I think about, well, what am I going to spend on all the other resources to help adults who can't hold down a job or can't do the work, in the long run, as a homeowner and as a taxpayer, I'm going to pay less in the long run if everybody around me has a good education and have great jobs for my community.
Agreed.
For sure.
And one last thing, the folks that are I'm 68, so I'm not going to be supposedly having a tax increase, but other properties that aren't protected by homestead of ours are going to. I'm doing this kind of selfishly, not only for Victoria, but for people my age and almost y'all's, a little bit younger than me. We want our kids and grandkids to come back to Victoria. Mm-hmm. I'm part of the group where my son graduated from A&M, but I asked him as they were getting married last March, "Are y'all coming back to Victoria?" He said, "No, Dad. we've picked a town that has a great school district and where the kids can, and it hurt me. You know, my son's not coming back and I'm not gonna see my grandchildren unless I fly 2,000 miles away. But we want our children to come back to be with in Victoria. Mostly we want our grandchildren, if we get some, to be back in Victoria. And our gift is something that'll make sure that we have the best teachers that money can buy, the best teachers that are, when they retire, because hopefully we're gonna get a lot of the school teachers that are from outside that see, I can get a $10,000 raise to teach in Victoria the last 5 years. And that's the way that all of Victoria is gonna prosper, and how our business is going to prosper even more by having a very highly trained student population.
Historically, we have not seen a good turnout with our teachers voting. Is there a group that is talking to them?
So I'm meeting with every single faculty. I met with another one today. I've met with about 2/3 of them. I also spoke to all of our employees at Convocation. And
Yes, I did hear that you did that, yes.
I did, and reminded them that at the last election 3 years ago, where we went out for 3 pennies, those pennies were called golden pennies, because not only did we put up our money, but the state almost tripled the value of them. So we've gotten millions in extra state funding because the voters said yes, and over half of our own employees did not even turn out to vote. I can't tell people how to vote. I can't tell people to vote, but I can make sure every single one knows very clearly what the information is before them. And so by election day, I will have hit every single department, every single faculty meeting, and I think there is a more of an understanding of this, and a more of an understanding of what we as a community are trying to do for our schools.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that, because it's, I mean, she's in my contacts. Y'all sent out an email to all the, I guess, VASD parents, and y'all kind of broke it down, and it included like how y'all are, y'all do such a good job budgeting, and how y'all have got this lowest tax rate, all these little bullet points. And so I just made my own little text, and every person in my contacts got it. And, and it was,
Oh, special.
I mean, there were people in there I haven't talked to in 6 years, but but I've really gotten a very, I only had one negative response. Everybody else was like super on board, but a lot of it is just getting the word out.
It's hard to get the word out because everybody's busy, and unless you're looking for information about the schools or the city or the county, it's easy to not really know what happens, and then all of a sudden you miss an opportunity, and then you kind of wish you had. And just to really make clear, because I know there's still confusion about what's on the ballot, this is not a bond. This isn't money to fix up a school. This is all for adding money to our budget to pay staff. But we will need a conversation. The next conversation, we've kind of laid out some tentative long-range options for how we tackle our old facilities, and we'll start talking about that probably in December, January, and February. We've got some ways to show people the lifespan of buildings. I'm old school. I love old buildings. I love old classic buildings. And I think the better we take care of them, they can last and last. I'm not of the mindset like a lot of the bigger cities where they build a 30-year school, and in 30 years they're going to bulldoze that school and build it again. We've got some beautiful old buildings, and I think we can take care of them, but it is expensive, new roofs and air conditioners and so forth. And so that has been a challenge, and we're not out of the woods with this, but that will be the next conversation.
There was a little concern that y'all had to cut, somebody had mentioned to me from the maintenance budget, but it sounds like
we're using some fund balance for that. It would have been nice to use that fund balance to put some new roofs on schools, but we have a healthy fund balance that can get us through this, can get us through the deficit budget, and that's why we're in a deficit. We have the savings. So when you move the savings over, you're not really in deficit. And we have enough savings to be able to do that for 2 or 3 years. Now the legislature is going to go into session. Let's see what they do with school funding, and maybe they can give us some relief in that area. It just costs more for everything. Everything we buy, everything we need is costing more and more. and everybody's in the same boat. None of us really had the extra money in our household budgets or anything else to pay for what inflation has done across the board. But we still have to come together and figure out a way around it.
One of the things you forgot to mention, Randy, was we did replace complete roofs of some of our facilities. What schools got replaced?
Oh,
What
goodness.
air conditioners
We've got, it depends on, we had about 14 schools with leaky roofs, and we've replaced parts of roofs and some of the ones at Chandler's getting a whole new roof. Allo got part of a roof. Shields got part of a roof. Vickers got part of a roof. It's the air conditioning. We're using some of that federal COVID money for replacing rooftop units, some chiller systems. But what's interesting, and it's not a bad thing, it's just the way it happens. In 1997, Victoria passed a bond and they put roofs all over the place. And a roof is good for about 20 years. You put a roof on your house, probably good about 20, 25 years. And they replaced air conditioning systems all throughout their schools. Wonderful. Well, that was 25, 26 years ago. It's all coming due at the same time. My thinking is, why do it all at the same time? Let's stagger it. So there's an article, and we have an administration report. So at the board meeting, the admin report is made public, and anybody can look at it. And you'll see what we've done with buses. And so over half of our fleet was over 20 years old. And instead of buying 12 or 15 buses when you get the money, why don't we do 6 a year? Because we have 80 buses. If you'll do 6 every year, they don't wear out at the same time, and we've replaced, 16, 18 buses.
With our scholarship fund for the swimmers.
And it's the same thing we do with our own homes.
Yeah.
You would never replace all of your appliances at once. This year we'll try to do the washer and dryer, and in 2 years let's do the dishwasher. You don't want everything wearing out at the same time. And so I'm not faulting the people in 1997 for doing that. That's just the way they did it. But for those of us who have inherited our positions in the district, it's all coming due. And the fact that we've gotten 25, 26, 27 years out of our stuff, but we're replacing the chiller system at the admin building, but it also serves students. It's our CTI area. It's a huge complex. The chiller system, which had a 20-year lifespan, is 38 years old. So our maintenance crew have been able to keep that old thing running for an additional 18 years. So I asked, how much does it cost to replace it now? $500,000. How much have we spent keeping it fixed and running for the last 18 years? We've spent $800,000 on repairs to squeeze out 18 years. Whereas if we had just spent $500,000 18 years ago, we'd still have 2 more years left and had another $800,000, but the district never had $500,000 to replace it. So we're going to have to change our thought on that. You can't. At some point, there is a lifespan to where now it costs more to maintain it than just buying a new one. And we're going to lay out not a 5-year plan, but a 40-year plan on a cycle for things, and that's pretty much ready to roll out in the spring to start laying out a plan for the community.
That's fabulous, because I think that's one reason so many things have gotten rejected, because it's just this
Huge.
thing all at once, instead of, like you said, staggering it and doing a little
It'll be
bit
hard though, because
time.
that's how far behind we are.
Yeah.
So right before COVID, and I've joined the district 3.5 years ago, so this was before my time. The district had architects come in and look at everything, every building, every room, and they put together an 8-binder report on all the things that were aged out, old, this and that.
pictures and videos too.
I don't know about that. I was just seeing the 8 binders, but it lists everything. And at that time, the estimate that if you just wrote a check and fixed everything on the list was $150 million. Now that was before inflation. So 3 years ago, there was a task force. Community volunteers went through that and said, all right, what do we need first? And they came up with $90 million of the list, which wasn't everything, but it was a big chunk. And that bond referendum failed. 90 million is a sticker shock, but the 90 million, the tax rate for that would have already been washed out, and we never would have even noticed it. That's going to be a conversation we'll need to have with the community, because I've kind of thrown out just an idea. What if we just did 25 million every 5 years? Had we been doing that over the last 15 years, we would have had 75 million coming in, and never really noticed it to our tax bill because it's not such a big amount. And if you'll do 25 million every 5 years, as one gets paid off, you add another 30, 40, 50 years out. And that's what other big cities are doing. That's how they're doing this. They they pay off a bond, add another one, and it stays flat, and you don't get these spikes. It's the spikes that are not predictable, and you can't count on the economy to support it, and you get in a bind. So
Makes so much sense.
we'll be talking about that, and 25 million may not be the right number, but somewhere out there we're going to need to have conversations about what do we do next, because it's one thing to say, well, we didn't take care of the buildings. Yeah, but if you have an old house and you want to keep your old house, you can't just keep patching the roof or putting money into the old AC system. There's times where you got to replace it, and our old units are not as efficient. So by replacing ACs, we think we're going to see some savings on the electric bill. One of the things we did with the COVID money, it's the ESSER money, we put about $13.5 million into air quality. We updated control systems so we can control all of the air conditioning and heating in all of the buildings. We were on 2 systems. One of the systems was so old, it was on a dial-up modem. Kids today don't even know what a dial-up modem is.
Yeah.
That's how we still accessed it. So just the efficiency, we're going to make that money back.
Oh, gosh.
So, we've got some work to do.
Yeah.
Any other?
Well, and it is so important, like with Dwayne being my husband, I'm getting to see a lot more of the big picture, and our city is not gonna grow if we don't have good schools.
That's
Because
true.
People don't wanna move, and one of my good friends, she works at the university, her husband's a judge, and she said they have a really hard time hiring professors and stuff for the reason that they move their family here, their kids don't have a good school to go to unless they pay for private school.
I have to say, though, I think we do have good schools.
We do have good schools.
We have great.
We're not, they look at the ratings.
Are kind of,
The ratings are based on the lowest performing kids. It's the grade system. We have about 94% of our high school graduates are walking across that stage, ready to go to college. They've either been accepted into a 2-year or 4-year college or university, or they have an industry-based certification to where they can go to work, or they have their acceptance into a military enlistment. 94%. That's amazing, amazing, amazing numbers. And there's a tremendous amount of good things happening. We have more kids in dual credit. A homeless kid in Victoria, Texas will outperform academically the average kid in any other school in Texas. Our homeless kids outperform the average student who's got all of those supports. So there are a lot of good things. Our challenges are we do have kids that are in really tough situations. They don't always have the academic support, and sometimes it's because their parent is working 2 or 3 jobs, and by the time you get to 4th or 5th grade, it gets harder and harder to help kids on their homework and with their studies. And the intervention is expensive. We're not always funded for that, and we're now trying to teach brand new teachers how to teach because they're not coming from the college setting. So we've spread our funds even thinner and thinner. But over the last 2 years, we put in a new program called the Bridge Program because we knew we had vacancies. And let's take a teacher aide. A teacher aide, and I started off as a teacher aide in Gonzales before I became a teacher and worked my way up. Teacher aides are phenomenal because they're already there. And we had teacher aides who had some or a lot of college, but they never got that degree, so they can't go through a program to become a certified teacher. But I'd put them in charge of my class on any given day. So we started the Bridge program. We took and partnered them with a university system that would be very generous in helping them get credit toward their degree. They allowed us as a district to build in professional development and get 12 hours of college credit for it. We pay them 75% of a teacher salary. We take the other 25% to pay for the college, so it doesn't cost us what we would pay a regular teacher had we hired one. But for a teacher aide, that 75% doubled their pay, because as a teacher aide making $11 or $12 an hour, and it's a win. So now they have doubled their pay. They're on their track to become a teacher. They're getting their college paid for, and we had 60, I think, in our first cohort group, and 30 or 40 or maybe 30 in the next. So of these 135 vacancies every year, we filled up half of them with our own people who will likely become a teacher, and because they're from here. They're from here. Hopefully they'll stay here. Some have kids, and it has been a blessing. And when you hear their stories, it's amazing. And some of the best things we hear when we walk into a campus, what is going on in that room? That is amazing. That's a Bridge teacher.
Well, and they've already been in the school system and are familiar with the classroom environment and behavior management and a lot of those things that a brand new teacher just fresh out of college doesn't have.
They don't. And so it has been a huge success. And I think of the first cohort group, I think maybe we lost 3. That's a huge win for us.
Great.
So that model is actually going to be the model for the state. We're going to have people looking at Victoria to go, well, how did y'all do that? How are you growing your own? And now we're trying to reach down into the high school and the junior high level and say, kids, I know you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, but if you wanted to be a teacher, by the time you get done, $50,000 a year for starting salary for a teacher is a good salary. Now, if you're competing with Austin and Houston, it may not. But if you're a 22-year-old getting out of college, $50,000 a year is a very good salary. So high school students, junior high kids, why don't you go to school? We have UHV here. We have Victoria College. You can get a much better, a cheaper college education here. You don't have to leave home. And then come back and work for us as a teacher. Fewer kids in Texas are wanting to become a teacher. We need to turn that around. And it's a great opportunity. So we're going to work on that. And I think our Bridge teachers will be the mouthpiece for that, of saying, I didn't think I could go to college. I know you don't, but look at me now. I'm now your teacher, and here's how I got it. So that type of what we call upstream work is going to have dividends that will pay out year after year after year. And we have that going on all over our district in all different venues.
Well, and I feel like too, the more, because we're both public school parents, and there are so many success stories, but unfortunately, what everybody talks about is all the negative stuff. And I feel like more of those positive situations and stories and successes, the more that gets talked about, the better on board we can get the rest of Victoria. Because if they feel like they're pouring money into something that's just inadequate.
Sure, that's completely understandable.
So it's a very collaborative, and I think it's great that you're going and talking to different entities and stuff.
So I would direct anybody who wants to learn more to the administration report. So several years ago, this whole community joined together, if they chose, and they laid out a strategic plan for the district. Now, strategic plans, if they're sitting on a shelf, do nothing. But if everybody put the time and effort to develop it, why don't we show people what we're doing to that? And the administration plan is the strategic plan. And you can see each of the 10 areas and what we're doing to support it. And the admin report, we have them all linked on our website. We have going back for several years, and every month we add one. And it's a great read. You can see pictures and highlights of what we're doing across this district to show what we're doing to hit our goals as part of our strategic plan.
One of the big things is one of the big things that were talked about at the August school board meeting was discipline. And the community is concerned about discipline. We've heard all these things that have been happening. Child A did something, child B did something, nothing bad. But what happened is that seems to have brought in a cohort with the sheriffs, with the resource officers, and even when necessary, with with Constance Johnson. But things good are happening. There is now a plan that's been put together that will solve a lot of the discipline problem and give concrete help to the teacher. Says, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to follow the rules. And if you don't, here is what's going to happen as a negative consequence. And I think the public needs to understand that the trustees went wholehearted with that, and we're getting discipline back in our schools.
We are. We've always had, I've been in education forever. There's always kids who don't want to be there. But one by one, you can reach them. And again, the more seasoned I became, the easier it was to recognize what the issue was and pull them aside and get them back on track. It has been a vicious cycle because a child who falls behind academically, now they have behavior problems because they're lashing out. They don't understand. They're completely lost. Then they had attendance problems. Well, when a child is missing 20 or 30 or 40 days a year, it's hard to get them caught up, and it's this vicious cycle. So we're hitting the attendance. We need kids in school every day so that we can keep them on top of things. Working with parents, we have an amazing connection center that works with parents and families and offers even some parenting support, some parenting classes. Sometimes when a child is misbehaving at school, they're actually better behaved still for us than at home. And so trying to help a parent or a grandparent or the guardian, here's what's working for me at school. If you'll try this, now we're doing it at the same time. Going after that, we have tiered behavior support. So kids who are really, really struggling with behavior, they're getting more support because we got to get to the root cause. We also have a challenge, and was it because of COVID? I don't know. When kids miss an entire year of school, we're seeing first graders and second graders who missed out on the fundamentals on how you behave as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. And so we self-funded. So we had some fund balance. We tried to build up some fund balance, and we're self-funding a Ready, Set, Learn program that we implemented this year, taking a look at our 4, 5, and 6-year-olds who might still behave like a 2-year-old. Think of our 2-year-olds and old 2-year-old tantrums. Imagine a 6-year-old having that because they don't understand, they don't even know how to behave. So we have to reteach that. And a teacher trying to teach math in 2nd grade can't always do that. So we've self-funded a 2.5-year pilot program with our own funds, and we have that in place, and we're providing a tremendous amount of training to the teachers, and we think we're going to see some benefits there that then will spread, because once a teacher knows how to do that, they can. But that has been one of the challenges everywhere is what we call our littles.
And that's where the SEBs come into play?
SEBs came in before even COVID. They were on every campus to help with the most severe behavior issues, trying to help kids get to that root cause of the problem. You know, a child who knows how to behave in school, I can threaten you with discipline, D-Hall or ISS, and you're probably going to straighten up. I call mom or dad, probably going to straighten up. If I put you in ISS, I bet I don't put you back there again. Or you choose not to go, let's call it that. But we do have kids who just struggle with connections with other people. And so SEBs have been around forever. They just different names. When I was a principal, mine was called Focus. And I basically I was a principal at Gonzales Elementary, and I had, I guess, 600 kids. And I probably had my top 20 frequent flyers. And I had one person, I said, your job every day is you check on those 20. And if one of them's getting a little, get them, settle them down before it's a discipline. So a lot of it was preventative and proactive. And if you ask our principals today, they will say their SEBs are one of the most valuable resources they have. And prevention is always better than the punishment. If you're tweaking a little bit and you're about to lose control, and I could pull you out, remember to breathe, remember the things we taught you, and calm them down and get them back in class. Now they're not missing instruction for ISS and discipline and so forth. So we do a lot of prevention.
Oh, yeah, they're doing a great job.
Well, I want to thank y'all for your time, and Dale, as always, thank you for being a part of the conversation. And we don't have any meetings next week. Our school board's meeting every single night, interviewing finalists. They'll name the lone finalists on Thursday, but then starting on Monday the 21st, we have 5 more of these meetings. If there are other places to meet with people, I'd be happy to go.
What about like the chamber and VEDC? And
So I've
some of
already
those
met, I'm
groups?
meeting with VEDC a week from Wednesday, Rotary, Lions,
Yay.
all of those. I've been at all of those.
A&M moms, or whatever they are.
You can send me an invite and I'll be there. And so,
Bronte, all those little
but
old ladies.
we're happy to get the information. And I've got some other people who can also go out, who can speak about this. My hope is that people will be informed. Whether they're for it or against it, at least they know when they see it, what it's for, what we're doing with it, and then people have to make the decision that's best for them.
I have a quick question.
Yes?
On this, you said that there were some groups that weren't included on here, but they are included in the raise, they're just not on the graphic?
Yeah, just because we were trying to keep it on one page. So
Everyone is included?
everybody's getting something,
Okay.
yes, yes. This was kind of the bulk
Right,
where
right.
most of
Right.
our employees fall.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.